Alrighty, so judging by this setup, you already know that I am once again on the road. I'm currently in a hotel room, which means that, yeah, it's not the most ideal setup in terms of what I'm doing right now, but hey, this will do because I have to do a video today, talk about the U.S. Men's National Team World Cup roster that was announced today around 12 o'clock my time. And for those wondering, no, I did not watch it live in person. I didn't really feel the need to watch live on person because I could always just check later on in terms of what the roster is going to announce, and especially with the way that they kind of gone very grand chaline in terms of viewing that near Manhattan as well, and also have some performance and some speeches that's going on. I just feel like that's just kind of low over the top, and I feel like I just need the roster. I don't need these extra things to see on top of that. So hence, again, that's why I did not watch the live announcement. But by the time the roster does drop, this of course is how it looks like, as I wrote pretty much everybody names on the board, and I also included snubs as well, because yes, we are going to talk about snubs, and there were definitely some notable ones, and probably ones that I'm pretty sure you probably know were left out in this roster that we'll definitely spend a lot of time talking about it. But I'm kind of also going to go a little in depth in terms of talking about each of the position, and especially talk about the snub as well, because one thing I will say is that no matter what Mauricio Pochettino chooses in terms of the World Cup roster, nobody's going to be happy. I feel like there's always going to be negativity, and I'm hearing it not even from the U.S. men's national team fans, but also from the media as well. It just feels like there's just way too much negativity already in this roster review. And yes, there are definitely some concerns, I would say, about the roster, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit too crazy to have that kind of negativity, especially the fact that you know there are some things that I will say that when I look at this roster, there are some promising sign that maybe the U.S. are not going to have an absolute disastrous kind of World Cup, and that they're not going to be repeating what they did in Copa America, which is getting grouped on home soil. But let's talk about the U.S. Men's National Team World Cup roster, and we're going to name all of them, and then of course we'll go each position by position, and then eventually get into to talk about the snub as well. In fact, the snub itself, I probably will integrate it once I start talking about each of these positions more in depth. So in the goalkeeping position, you got Matt Freese, Matt Turner, and Chris Brady. In the defense, you got Max Arfston, Serginho Dest, Alex Freeman, Mark McKenzie, Tim Reen, Chris Richard, Anthony Robinson, Miles Robinson, Joe Scally, and Austin Trusty. In the midfield, you got Tyler Adams, Sebastian Berhalter, Weston McKennie, Christian Rodon, Brendan Aronson, Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Malik Tillman, Tim Weah, and Alex Zendejas. And then in the forward group, you got Florian Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, and Haji Wright to rounds up your 26-man roster. So let's get into the goalkeeping first. So this is something that I've actually spent a lot of time talking about in the review in the last couple of episodes when I talk about MLS play, where, you know, obviously the reason why I've been talking about that is that I think this is really the first time we have seen the U.S. are going to go to a World Cup where they're basically bringing only MLS goalkeeper. I don't think that has ever happened before. I mean, it might have. I might have just been mistaken, but yeah. But all three of these goalkeepers, of course, play in MLS, and I've already said many times before that, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what exactly Mauricio Pochettino is going to do in the goalkeeping spot. By the way, I'm going to actually not hold up to the board so much when I explain to this, because, you know, this is kind of hard to explain it while I'm holding up the boards. I'll only hold it up when I talk about each of the position that is. But yeah, you know, it's going to be very interesting because of the way that, you know, there's been that talks of, is it going to be Matt Freese? Is it going to be Matt Turner? I have already said before that I feel like, what about Chris Brady as well? I think he should deserve a shout, and especially when you look at MLS play, I would argue Chris Brady, at least in recent form, has looked much better than what we've seen with both Matt Freese or Matt Turner. But I guess the reason why the discussion is on Matt Freese or Matt Turner is the fact that both of them have some experience with the U.S. men's national team. Chris Brady hasn't really have a lot of experience, and you don't want to throw in a very inexperienced goalkeeper in the biggest stage of the game straight away. But I also wouldn't be surprised that maybe Pochettino, he might even decided to kind of just go with a two goalkeeper system and maybe go for a little of a revolving door. Now, honestly, I'm never a big fan when teams decided to go with a revolving door situation, when they decide to flip goalkeeper depending on each game. But I feel like this could be the case in this World Cup for the U.S. I wouldn't be surprised that in the first game it could be Matt Freese playing against Paraguay, and if he doesn't do well, in the next one we could see Matt Turner goes into that spot. So yeah, I think that as much as I've said that, I don't envy Mauricio Pochettino in terms of choosing who is going to be his number one, because there's that big discussion that both of them certainly makes a case that they could be, and both of them definitely makes a case that they shouldn't be there, especially when you look at how Matt Freese played against Nashville. Yeah, that was a pretty bad performance as well. And as good as Matt Turner has been this season, there's been times where he has kind of looked bad at games as well. So yeah, again, it's going to be very interesting to see who is going to be the starting goalkeeper for the U.S. heading into that opening game against Paraguay. That is almost an inaugural game, when the inaugural game is actually between Mexico and South Africa down at the Azteca. Now, look at the defense as well. Like I said, these are pretty much the defense. Now, this is the one thing that I will kind of agree in terms of what I've heard from the media, saying that they are not happy the fact that Mauricio Pochettino seems like they're overstacking the defense, because, again, I understand what happened back in March and how it was just such a disastrous camp for the U.S. where they were leaking goals left, right, and center, and also the fact that you have question in terms of the goalkeeping spot. Maybe that means that you need to just overstack the defense and be maybe a little bit less aggressive, maybe kind of doubt things back a little bit. And if that is the case, I mean, I do kind of concern the fact that is Mauricio Pochettino is going to go pragmatic and maybe decided to play a little bit haram ball and go defensive, because I never like when the coach decided to play defensive, unless of course they play against teams that clearly are above the level of the U.S. I mean, I have no problem if the U.S. does play against some of the better team like France or Spain with the haram ball style. I will not be okay if they decide to do that against Paraguay. In fact, when you look at the matchup between both of those teams, especially from the first matchup that we saw between both of the teams, the U.S. had more of the possession. They were the more dominant in terms of the possession style. So I don't think Mauricio Pochettino is going to go with a more pragmatic approach, which kind of just question why exactly did he decide to bring so many defender on this team, especially some of them you could kind of argue that they probably shouldn't be on this team. I mean, an example of that is Tim Ream. That is, he has been pretty bad this season for Charlotte FC. It's the same with Miles Robinson as well. I mean, when you also look at the back line itself, I'm going to assume that Mauricio Pochettino is also going free at the back, because, when you bring so many defender on this team, you have to go free at the back. That's the only reason. So at the free at the back, obviously it's Chris Richard is pretty much stapled himself onto the starting center back spot, even though there's that concern, the fact that he did deal with an injury late in the season with Crystal Palace. But then after that, who is going to be his partner? I hear some that say Tim Reams, even though I don't think that's a great idea, consider how bad he's been with Charlotte this season. Some would say Mark McKenzie. That's a good shout as well. And then even some said that Alex Freeman could be in that spot as well. And Alex Freeman has at times played in a free back system, and he can definitely play in a free back system, especially playing in that right center back, that kind of more drift to more being a fullback itself. And obviously with the fullback position, you got both Serginho Dest and Antonio Robinson being the wing backs, that is. But yeah, it is very interesting to see how the shape is going to be in this five back system. And again, I say a five back system because you don't bring this many defender on this team to not play a five back system. And because they bring so much defenders on this team and bring so many center back, this is where we get to the next point that is a big concern with this team, and one thing that I kind of do agree with the media talk about, how there is some huge concern when it comes to the midfield. And obviously, I already mentioned about the midfield situation, the fact that, yes, I think the U.S. once again has not learned from their same mistake that they made back in the Copa America. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Leaving Diego Luna off of this team is going to be the same mistake that the U.S. made back in 2024. And I'm not saying Diego Luna is a starting caliber kind of player. I'm just saying that I feel like he should be included in this team because he is by far has higher ceiling than some of the players that is being selected. I mean, some of the players that is being selected in the midfield really baffles me. For example, Brandon Aronson barely featured this season with Leeds and hasn't looked so good. Gio Reyna is definitely one that a lot of people have talk about of how he barely played the season as well and had that saga situation between him with Borussia Dortmund and Nottingham Forest. Yeah, I mean, when you have these two guys that are kind of dead weight, and even Malik Tillman as well. Malik Tillman in the past was very good. This season, he had a really rough season with Leverkusen itself. Yeah, I mean, it just kind of baffles you of the fact that how in the world do these guys deserve to get a start when you literally have a guy in Diego Luna that is performing at the highest level with RSL this season and a guy that can definitely make a huge impact for you off the bench. Why don't you bring him in instead of all of these guys that, I just feel like maybe Mauricio Pochettino decided to go a little bit too safe with this and that maybe he just feel like, you know what, I'm just going to go with the known commodity instead of going with the more obvious choice as well. And sometimes, we said it before, known commodity doesn't always turn to work out for this team. But again, going back to talk about them bring a lot of defender, this also means that they didn't bring as much midfielder, and especially the defensive midfield spot is a huge concern of this team because, we know that Tyler Adams for sure is going to be the starting defensive mid. In fact, of all the players that is pretty much locked into the starting 11 week in and week out, I say Tyler Adams is definitely in that spot. Some might say Christian Pulisic as well because he's the star of this team, but I argue it is Tyler Adams because he just feels like he's irreplaceable right now. What he does in that midfield is going to really help this U.S. and we've seen when he's not available how much of a problematic that midfield is for the U.S. and especially with the way that they don't have a proper replacement. I mean, when you look at this team, there's not really a lot of guys on this team that can do the job that Tyler Adams have. I mean, the next guy that can do that job is Christian Rodon. And let's just say not a lot of U.S. fans are happy that they saw Christian Rodon name on there, considering the fact that, I mean, he's been okay this season with Seattle, but he's definitely not a guy that I think U.S. fans would consider to be caliber in terms of being with the U.S., especially for the World Cup, and the fact that, in past U.S. camp, he didn't look impressive whatsoever. And the reason why I also kind of say that I think, Tyler Adams is irreplaceable, and the biggest concern of the lack of depth in the midfield spot, especially in the D-mid spot, is that Tyler Adams has been very injury prone. I mean, he just came back from a big injury. I think it was a hamstring injury report, if I'm not mistaken. Whatever injury it is, he's been very injury prone, and you are just praying the fact that he can stay healthy throughout the remaining of the World Cup, because if he can, that is going to be bad when it comes to who exactly is going to be replacing him. And some people would say, well, can one of those center backs potentially go up there to play D-mid? Because we've seen before where teams have decided to put some of their center back and play in the D-mid slot. Well, this is the next problem. All these defenders that I mentioned, none of them can play D-mid. I mean, some of them maybe could do if they really need to, and even some of the attacking players could also drop in there to play in the D-mid spot, but that's not going to work out well when you decide to play players out of position, and that we've seen before when you just try to plug and play a player from different position, it doesn't usually work out very, very well. So, I am kind of baffled the fact that that Pochettino decided to really stack up the defense, mainly because maybe he's trying to solidify the defense. And at least if there's one good thing about this is the fact that at least the depth of this team on the defense is not going to be an issue. But that also means that now you bring in another issue with the fact that there's just clearly not enough defensive midfielder on this team, and that you also look at the midfield situation. I mean, who exactly is going to partner Tyler Adams? A lot of people said it's going to be Weston McKennie, and most likely McKennie is going to be the guy to do so. But what happened when both of those guys went down? Berhalter could definitely come in there as well, but do you really trust a Berhalter-Rodon kind kind of combination. I mean, I think U.S. fans are going to have a meltdown if they see that kind of combination that is going to happen. And then, also going in that playmaker's spot, I was a little bit surprised seeing Alex Zendeja's name being included. I mean, in many ways, I'm kind of happy that he did get included. I mean, those are two guys that I feel like should get more chance, especially Zendeja has performed very well this season with Club America. Though my biggest question with Zendejas is the fact that he hasn't really got a lot of minutes with this team, and the fact that he hasn't really looked that impressive when he is given the chance with the U.S. We'll see whether or not that could work out. But yeah, overall, when you go a little forward, I mean, in the winger position, it's probably going to be Tim Weah that's going to be in that spot, and of course Pulisic is probably going to be the main number 10. And the thing about Christian Pulisic is the fact that I know this will sound crazy to say, and I know this is probably not going to happen, but do Mauricio Pochettino make a brave decision and say that, hey, you haven't performed well enough in AC Milan, and I know you're the star of this team, but we're going to have you come off the bench and hope that you make an impact. And I know that's a crazy decision, but I mean, it's not out of the ordinary, and especially, like I said, Pulisic has had a really rough time with AC Milan, especially in the back end of the season, and the fact that we still haven't really seen the best version of him for a while, even playing with the national team. Yeah, I know it's kind of unthinkable to say that he should be dropped, but there could be a possibility. But then again, the argument in terms of that is, well, who do you put him in that spot? I mean, I guess maybe Zendejas can take that spot, and Zendejas maybe could have that breakout out time of why he, of course, was selected in this one. But this also kind of just makes me goes back to the Diego Luna situation. Imagine if they had Diego Luna in there. Let's say if Pulisic is not playing well, they could instantly put Diego Luna there, and he could definitely make a big impact for this U.S. men's national team as well. Now, in the forward group, I have no problem seeing Balogun being there. Balogun is another guy that I think is going to be right there in the number 9 position, and it's irreplaceable because he is one of the few U.S. men's national team players that actually had a really good season with their club level. But then after that, it is a little bit of drop off. Pepe, he's been okay during his time in club level, but he's been very up and down. And Haji Wright, I will say that Haji Wright could be the second choice. Consider Haji Wright actually had a good season with Coventry City and kind of play a big part of getting them promoted in the Premier League as well. So maybe he could be a good second option. But it's going to be Flo Balogun. He's going to be definitely there week in and week out, being that number 9. And because if it isn't him, there is a little bit of a drop off after that as well. Now we get to the snubs as well. I already mentioned Diego Luna before, and how much that I'm just feel like this is going to be, no matter what the U.S. does in this World Cup, whether if they go far and make a deep run all the way to the quarterfinal, even the semifinal, or even if they suffer an ultimate embarrassment of getting grouped on home soil, just like they did in Copa America, I think everybody, including myself, can agree the fact that leaving Diego Luna off of this team is a massive mistake. It is going to be the biggest mistake that I think this team will make, and it just feels like we have another U.S. men's national team head coach that didn't learn from the mistake from the last one of when you decided to leave Diego Luna at home. You definitely miss the presence that he can bring and the energy that he can bring to a team. Now, other players that I mentioned, Tanner Tessman and Aidan Morris, those two guys I kind of mentioned mainly because, I talk about the lack of depth in the mid position. Those two guys were supposed to be the guy that I thought would be the backup choices. Yes, I know both of those guys had a rough camp in March. And this is another thing that I have heard from people of saying the fact that maybe Mauricio Pochettino is just being too reactionary when it comes to select this team, and just don't really look at the bigger picture and just look at what happened in March and decided that, the way that we can fix this is just basically do this to make it more defensive, and definitely not going to choose those same guy back in March and put them into the national team. And while I know it is kind of a sometimes reactionary kind of selection, may work out sometimes, more times than not it just doesn't work out. Especially when you don't have a lot of depth in that position. You rather have guys that can come in and maybe can do a good job. I mean, let's say if both Tanner Tessman and Aidan Morris comes in. I know U.S. fans are going to complain about what happened in March, but what if both of those guys will have a bounce back cam, and both of those guys have shown in the past that they could be quality, at least providing some depth in the D mid position. And if I'm a U.S. men's national team fan, I mean, the other thing I also want to ask U.S. men's national team fan: would you rather have Tanner Tessman and Aiden Morris be those two guys that is at the depth position in the D mid behind Tyler Adams, or just have Christian Rodon? Because I'm pretty sure right now, if I asked that to any U.S. men's national team fan, they would probably say that, yeah, we'd rather have Tanner Tessman and Aiden Morris being there. And then the last snub that I put, it's a little bit of a reach, but I decided to put Xavier Gozo there just because of the fact that he's another guy that has had an incredible breakout season with RSL so far, to a point where I definitely think that he's definitely going to get some nod for the U.S. men's national team in the future. I think maybe this is a little too soon. He still need to continue to build his resume, and especially maybe make that big move to Europe to be included in this team as well. But yeah, overall, this is basically the roster that will be playing on home soil, and let's just hope that it's going to be good enough. Again, I said earlier in this video that I think there are some positive. I do like the fact that you know the defense is going to be solidified in this one, and that maybe Mauricio Pochettino is going to make this team tough to play, and that also going forward, if, and this is a huge if Christian Pulisic is starting to show his best and go back to his former self, and if Tyler Adams can stay healthy, which is another big if, I think this team should be fine and able to move on into the next round. I mean, I would be definitely stunned if they don't do so, even with the big question of this roster has had. But again, that's going to be a debate we're going to have for these next couple of weeks, and I think that debate will immediately be put in force when we get to those send-off games, because normally with send-off games, not a lot of people pay attention to, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of people pay attention to, and myself, I think I'm going to try my best to pay attention to as well, even though technically I'm unable to watch most of part of those send-off games because it's going to be in the daytime. I'm working during those time as well, but I'm very fascinating to see how it will work, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mauricio Pochettino might start not only experiment a bit, but maybe think about putting his best 11 on this team. That maybe this is going to be the one that will be there for the World Cup, that is. And keep in mind, these two send-off games, they're not an easy game whatsoever. I mean, Senegal and Germany, both of these teams are really good. I mean, Senegal, didn't they just won the AFCON this year or in the previous edition as well? And then Germany, I know Germany has not been the same as what we saw a couple years ago, but it's still a powerhouse European kind of team, and a good test to see how the U.S. would do when they do face against teams that, again, when I look at the teams that the U.S. are going to face, there's no excuse of not moving on into the next round. You could even argue there's no excuse to not finish in the top two and have to rely on being one of the best third place team, because ideally, I think the U.S. is better than Paraguay. I have heard reports saying that Paraguay, there are some concern with injuries to their team. And then Australia is a team that I think the U.S. should do well, even though the Aussie has kind of surprised some people in the World Cup before. And then Turkey, I think, might be the toughest matchup that they might have. But still, I think there's no excuse for the U.S. to not move on into the next round, especially with the home crowd there. And I know I say home crowd, even though I don't know if that's going to be the case, especially, we always talk about whenever the U.S. play in home soil, there's a reason why they avoid playing certain teams, because, yeah, they're probably not going to have the home field advantage, and I'm pretty sure Paraguayan fans are going to show up, probably Australian fans are going to show up in Seattle, and I know Turkish fans will definitely show up. I mean, those fans are among some of the craziest fans in the world, and I'm definitely think that they're going to make a hostile environment down in LA for the U.S. playing in this World Cup. And this, again, also kind of goes back for what I said a while back, of the fact that I just don't like the choice that the U.S. had when it comes to which venue that they chose. I mean, I don't know if they had a choice to choose which venue that they played, but why in the world did they decided to play both game in LA and then play one in Seattle? The Seattle one makes sense because I think Seattle has been deserved to have the U.S. to play in that stadium. It's been long overdue, but LA just doesn't make any sense. LA is a market where there's a reason why the U.S. don't go to that market very often, because one, that's an tree market, and also it's a market that is pretty weak when it comes to U.S. men's national team support. And I know I might have just disrespected the SoCal the fan support that is, but compared to other fan support around the country, the Southern California region is definitely not as strong as what you see maybe like, let's say, in Kansas City or even in Columbus or so forth, or even in some city in the East Coast as well, or even Atlanta as well, that has a very strong U.S. men's national team following. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of me talking about the roster itself. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this? I'm pretty sure there's going to be an interesting discussion in the comment section talking about this World Cup roster that Mauricio Pochettino has just announced today. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.